The weight of my inheritance felt heavier than the suitcase I carried up the familiar stone pathway. As I stood on the front porch of my childhood home, my hand hesitated before pressing the doorbell. After 6 years away pursuing my degree and establishing my career, I was finally returning to claim what was rightfully mine. My name is Jessica Parker, and this was supposed to be my homecoming. The suburban two-story house looked smaller than I remembered. The blue shutters needed a fresh coat of paint, and the garden my father had meticulously tended now sprouted weeds between withering roses. Dad had been gone for 8 months now, and it seemed his touch was fading from this place with each passing day. The door swung open, and my mother's face brightened momentarily before settling into something more guarded. "Jessica, you're early. We weren't expecting you until tomorrow." She pulled me into a stiff embrace that felt more obligatory than loving. "I managed to catch an earlier flight," I replied, breathing in her familiar scent of vanilla and cigarettes. "It's good to see you, Mom." As she ushered me inside, the atmosphere shifted. The house that once radiated warmth now felt like foreign territory. Family photos lined the walls, but something about their arrangement seemed off. More pictures of my brother, Nathan, fewer of me. In the newest frames, Nathan stood proudly with his arm around his very pregnant fiancée, Vanessa. "Nathan and Vanessa are out getting groceries," Mom explained, leading me to the guest room. "They should be back soon." I stopped abruptly. The guest room, I thought I'd be staying in my old room. Mom's eyes flickered away from mine. "Oh, well, Nathan and Vanessa are using your room now. They needed the extra space with the baby coming and all." Something cold settled in my stomach. "I see." I had been paying the mortgage on this house for the past 4 years, sending money faithfully each month to ensure my parents could keep their home after Dad's business failed. My own apartment in Chicago was modest because of it, but I'd never complained. Family comes first, that's what Dad always said. The guest room was small and impersonal, with beige walls and a twin bed that sagged in the middle. I set my suitcase down and took a deep breath, trying to quell the unease building inside me. Something wasn't right, but I couldn't quite place it yet. Dinner that evening was a performance in discomfort. Nathan dominated the conversation, talking about his new position at the local insurance agency and Vanessa's plans for the nursery. My old room, completely redecorated with pale yellow walls and a handcrafted crib. "We're thinking of knocking down the wall between your old room and the study," Nathan said between bites of pot roast. "Make it a proper nursery suite." "The study, but that was Dad's space," I said, my fork pausing midway to my mouth. "Well, he's not using it anymore, is he?" Nathan laughed, and Mom joined in with a nervous chuckle. Vanessa at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "I thought this was temporary," I said carefully. "Your stay here, I mean." A look passed between Nathan and Mom, so quick I almost missed it. "Actually, Jess," Nathan began, using the nickname I'd always hated, "we've been thinking it makes sense for us to stay, with the baby coming and Mom needing help around the house. Plus, it's such a nice neighborhood for raising a family," Vanessa added, resting her hand on her swollen belly. I nodded slowly, processing this information. "And what about the mortgage? Are you helping Mom with that now?" Another glance between them. Mom cleared her throat. "Oh, we don't need to talk about finances at dinner, dear." But something in her evasion made my skin prickle. "Actually, I think we do. I've been sending money every month for the mortgage. If Nathan's taking over the house, is he taking over the payments too?" "Well, your contribution has been so helpful," Mom said, her voice syrupy sweet. "But Nathan and Vanessa are contributing in other ways. They're here with me, helping around the house." "So I'm still paying the mortgage," I stated flatly, "for a house I don't live in, where my bedroom has been converted to a nursery and where I sleep in the guest room when I visit." Nathan's expression hardened. "Look, Jess, not everyone can throw money at problems and call it helping. Some of us actually roll up our sleeves and do the work." "I've been throwing money at this house for 4 years," I replied, feeling heat rise to my face. "Money I earned by working 60-hour weeks, money that could have gone toward my own place." "And we're grateful," Mom interjected quickly. "So grateful, but family helps family, right? Your father would want us to stick together." The mention of Dad silenced me temporarily. He would want us to stick together, but would he want me to be taken advantage of? The question lingered as we finished dinner in uncomfortable silence. Later that night, unable to sleep on the lumpy guest bed, I crept downstairs for a glass of water. Voices drifted from the kitchen, Nathan and Mom speaking in hushed tones. "She's getting suspicious," Nathan said. "Maybe we should tell her." "Not yet," Mom replied. Once the baby comes, she'll understand. Family first, right? That's what your father always said. But the house will be yours like we planned. Jessica has her fancy job and her city life. She doesn't need this place like you do. I froze, the glass halfway to my lips. The house will be yours. What were they planning? The next morning, I made an excuse about needing to check my work emails and drove to the local coffee shop. Instead of logging into my work account, I called Marcus Henderson, Dad's longtime friend and our family financial advisor. Jessica, good to hear from you. How's your visit home going? Marcus's friendly voice was a relief after the tension of the previous night. Not great, actually. I have some questions about my parents' mortgage. There was a pause. What kind of questions? I've been sending Mom money every month for the mortgage. I want to know if that's where it's been going. Another longer pause. Jessica, I think you should come to my office. There are some things we need to discuss in person. 2 hours later, I sat across from Marcus, staring at the document spread before me. The truth was worse than I had imagined. The mortgage payments I'd been making had been going into a joint account under Mom and Nathan's names. Only a fraction had been applied to the actual mortgage. The rest had been spent on renovations, a new car for Nathan, and various luxury items. Moreover, 3 months ago, Mom had changed her will, leaving the house entirely to Nathan. I'm sorry, Jessica, Marcus said gently. I only discovered this recently myself. I would have told you sooner if I'd known. I felt numb as I gathered the copies of the bank statements and legal documents. Thank you for being honest with me now. Driving back to the house, not my house, I reminded myself bitterly. I pulled over twice because tears blurred my vision. All these years, I'd believed I was helping my family, ensuring they had stability and security after Dad's death. Instead, I'd been funding Nathan's comfortable life while sacrificing my own. The betrayal cut deep, but beneath the pain, something else was emerging, a cold, clear resolve. I would not be their victim anymore. I would reclaim what was mine, my dignity, my money, and my future. For the next 3 days, I played along. I smiled at dinner, helped Vanessa hang curtains in the nursery that should have been my room, and listened to Nathan's grand plans for his house. All the while, I was documenting, photographing, and gathering evidence. I scheduled appointments with a lawyer, a financial advisor, and a therapist specializing in family trauma. On the fourth day, I received an email that confirmed my suspicions. Dad's life insurance policy, which I had believed went entirely to Mom, had been partially redirected to a trust in Nathan's name, a trust that I had unknowingly been contributing to through my mortgage payments. That evening, as we sat down for another family dinner, I placed a folder on the table. What's this? Mom asked, eyeing it nervously. Evidence, I replied calmly, of financial abuse, fraud, and misappropriation of funds. Nathan laughed, but it sounded forced. What are you talking about? I opened the folder and began laying out documents one by one, bank statements showing my payments and where they actually went, receipts for the renovations and Nathan's car, the changed will, the redirected insurance policy. For 4 years, I've sent $2,300 every month for a mortgage that's only $1,500. The extra $800 a month has been going into a joint account that you two share. I looked between Mom and Nathan. That's $38,400 over 4 years that you've taken from me under false pretenses. Mom's face had gone pale. Jessica, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, I interrupted. You've been using me as your personal ATM while positioning Nathan to inherit everything. Nathan's face flushed with anger. You always were selfish. You left us to go build your fancy career while I stayed here taking care of Mom after Dad died. I left to build a career so I could support this family financially, which I have been doing faithfully for years, I countered. And I'm not the one redecorating rooms in a house I don't own, using money I didn't earn. Vanessa looked between us, confusion etched on her face. Nathan, what is she talking about? You told me your mother was paying for the renovations. She was, Nathan snapped. With the money Jess sends, it's all the same family pot. No, I said firmly. It's not. That was my money, earned by my work, sent with the specific purpose of paying the mortgage, not for buying you a new car or renovating my bedroom into a nursery. Mom reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Honey, we're family. We share what we have. Your father would. Don't, my voice was ice. Don't you dare tell me what Dad would want. Dad would be ashamed of what you've done. The words hung in the air like shattered glass. Mom's face crumpled, and for a moment I felt a twinge of guilt. But then I remembered all the nights I'd eaten ramen because I couldn't afford proper groceries after sending them money, all the vacations I'd declined because I couldn't afford them, all the years I'd lived in a cramped studio apartment while they renovated their house with my money. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, pulling out another document. This is a formal demand for repayment of the misappropriated funds. You have 30 days to either pay me back in full or sign over partial ownership of this house equivalent to my contribution. Nathan stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. You can't do this. This is our home. A home paid for with my money, I replied evenly. You have choices, Nathan. Pay me back or share ownership. Or, I added, pulling out one final document, I can pursue this legally, including filing fraud charges, which would involve a full investigation of your finances. You wouldn't do that to your own family, Mom whispered. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something I hadn't noticed before, not love or concern, but fear of losing her comfortable arrangement. The same family that lied to me for years, that exploited my love and sense of duty, that planned to cut me out entirely. I shook my head. You stopped acting like family a long time ago. I stood up, gathering my documents. You have 30 days to decide. I'll be staying at the Holiday Inn if you need to reach me. I've already stopped the automatic payments to your account. As I turned to leave, Nathan called out, You'll regret this, Jess. When you're all alone with your money and no family, you'll regret this. I paused at the door. I already regret the years I wasted believing I had a family that loved me as much as I loved them. I won't waste any more. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings, tearful phone calls from Mom, and angry texts from Nathan. Vanessa reached out once, apologizing and claiming she hadn't known about the financial arrangement. I wasn't sure whether to believe her, but her disillusionment seemed genuine. Word spread in our small community. Some people took Nathan's side, believing I was the heartless daughter who abandoned her family and then tried to take their home. Others, those who knew the full story, offered their support. Dad's old friends were particularly outraged by how his wishes had been distorted after his death. In the end, Mom and Nathan couldn't repay the money, nor could they afford to buy out my share of the house. We reached a settlement. The house would be sold, with the proceeds split proportionally based on contribution. They had 6 months to find a new place. I used my share to put a down payment on a small house in a neighboring town, close enough to maintain connections with those community members who had stood by me, far enough to establish independence from my family's toxic influence. The day I moved into my new home, a modest 2-bedroom with a sunny kitchen and a small backyard, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. This place was mine, bought with my money, reflecting my taste and my choices. No one could take it from me or make me feel like an unwelcome guest within its walls. Nathan and Vanessa moved to an apartment across town. He got a second job to help with expenses, and according to mutual acquaintances, the reality of having to support himself fully had been a harsh awakening. Mom moved in with her sister in the next state, where she wouldn't have to face the community that now knew what she had done. 6 months after the confrontation, I received a letter from Vanessa. She had given birth to a healthy baby boy and included a photo. In her letter, she wrote about how the events had changed her perspective on family and honesty. Nathan was working hard and attending financial management classes. They were struggling but learning to stand on their own. I pinned the photo to my refrigerator but didn't respond immediately. Forgiveness would come, perhaps, but not yet. First, I needed to heal myself. A year passed. I joined a support group for survivors of family financial abuse, sharing my story and helping others recognize the signs I had missed for so long. I was promoted at work and started dating again. Slowly, I rebuilt my life on a foundation of self-respect and clear boundaries. On the anniversary of Dad's death, I visited his grave alone. I brought his favorite sunflowers and sat by the headstone, telling him about my new home, my healing journey, and the person I was becoming. I think you would be proud, Dad, I whispered, not of what happened with the family, but of how I've found my voice. I'm not letting anyone take advantage of me anymore. As I stood to leave, I noticed a familiar figure approaching from the cemetery entrance. Mom, looking older and frailer than when I'd last seen her, clutched a small bouquet of daisies. Our eyes met, and for a moment we both froze. Then slowly she continued toward me. Jessica, she said softly, I didn't expect to see you here. It's Dad's anniversary, I replied. I wouldn't miss it. She nodded, eyes downcast. Neither would I. We stood in uncomfortable silence before she spoke again. Your aunt told me you bought a house. That's good. It is good, I agreed. It's mine, and it's exactly what I need. Mom's hands trembled slightly as she arranged the daisies beside my sunflowers. I've been seeing a therapist. She's helping me understand what I did to you. She looked up, her eyes glistening. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted you to know that I recognize how wrong it was. The admission stunned me. In all our years together, I had never heard my mother take responsibility for her actions so directly. Thank you for saying that, I managed. She nodded. Nathan is struggling to accept his part in it, but he will eventually. The baby, your nephew, is helping him see things differently. I got Vanessa's letter, I said. He's beautiful. He is. A small smile crossed her face. He has your eyes, our family eyes. Family, the word still stung, but differently now. Not with the sharp pain of betrayal, but with the dull ache of something lost and potentially, someday, rebuilt in a healthier form. I should go, I said, gathering my purse. I have plans this evening. Of course, Mom stepped back. Jessica, I am truly sorry. I nodded, not quite ready to offer more, but acknowledging her apology. Goodbye, Mom. As I walked back to my car, I felt lighter somehow. The confrontation hadn't been planned, but perhaps it was necessary, another step in my journey toward healing. That evening, standing on the small balcony of my new home, I looked out at the neighborhood I was gradually becoming part of, a place where I was known for who I was now, not for my family history or the role I had been assigned within it. The setting sun bathed everything in a warm golden glow, and I took a deep breath of the cool autumn air. For so long, I had defined myself through the lens of my family's expectations and needs. I had been the responsible one, the provider, the dutiful daughter who sacrificed without complaint. Now I was simply Jessica, a woman who had discovered her worth and refused to accept anything less than the respect she deserved, a woman who had turned betrayal into strength and loss into independence. I wasn't sure what the future held for my relationship with Mom and Nathan. Perhaps there would be reconciliation someday, built on honesty and mutual respect rather than exploitation and manipulation. Or perhaps we would remain distant, connected only by shared history and occasional civil interactions. What I did know was that I would never again allow anyone to make me feel small or unworthy. I would never again sacrifice my well-being for people who saw me only as a resource to be used, and I would never again mistake financial support for love or obligation for respect. As darkness fell, I turned on the porch light, my light, and went inside, closing the door firmly behind me. Tomorrow was a new day in my new life, and I was finally, truly free to live it on my own terms.